I hate doing these intros. Oh my gosh. Morning! Morning! Morning. Howdy. It's 5 a.m. We're about to smoke some brisket. This is the world of barbecue. 5 a.m. You get up and you start smoking meat while everybody's asleep. So we're gonna get cracking on it. We're gonna get the smoker fired up here. We're gonna be cooking on the Pitboss Austin XL. Pretty good smoker. Pellet fed. We have some pecan pellets in here. And we're gonna go ahead and turn it on and set her to 275. Start rolling some smoke. Okay, that's what we're looking for right there. The dirty white smoke is clearing out. It's starting to burn good now. We gotta close the lid, start letting it heat up. Okay, let's get the brisket out. The old Kelvinator, no frost edition. Oh. Yeah, that's right. So this is the way that your brisket's gonna come if you get the proper brisket. This is a packer cut brisket. It's beef, in case you didn't know. Sometimes if you go to the grocery stores, you'll find partial briskets. And they're usually for like making corned beef or some kind of roast or whatever. But what it is it's two different muscles, and I'll show more of this once I get it opened up. But you have the flat, which is the leaner portion, and you have the point, which is the fattier cut. So oftentimes when you go to your local grocery store, they'll sell the flat only or the point only. So some grocery stores will carry the packer cut. You may have to ask for them. Okay, here we go. Nice piece of meat here. And we're gonna have to do some trimming on it now, because if you just throw it in like this, it's gonna be a disaster. These little flappy pieces here, they're gonna get burned up and dried out. Get rid of them, it's pointless. The fat is very inconsistent. You have thick spots, thin spots. You got these little tangy pieces here every once in a while. On the bottom side, you have a big, thick piece of fat. Some of these, well, like that that just came right off. So, definitely requires a lot of trimming. And I'm going to suggest that you get a good knife, sharp knife. This one here is from Benchmade. It's, I believe it's called their Meat Crafter. And it's scary sharp, which is good. Because I've done a lot of briskets with dull knives, and I pretty much just give up on them. So, anyway, we'll go ahead and start on the bottom since it's already up. The first thing I want to do is I want to clean up this big chunk of fat here, and this is called the decal, and it's really hard fat that's never going to cook out properly. You just need to get it off. So, just going to start here and just going to come in and start trimming her up. I'm going to throw that in there. You can kind of take a little bit out into the meat. I wouldn't go too deep though. You want to keep it kind of aerodynamic so that the heat is flowing across it properly, and you're going to get a good, nice, consistent bark across it. So as far as the rest of it, like, I don't go super crazy. There's some kind of like I guess you call it silver skin on here. I don't go nuts taking that off, because I mean you could be here all day just trimming little tiny bits off. But if there's bigger chunks of fat, or there's a spot right here, it's kind of jacked up looking from the packing plant. So we'll just go ahead and trim that off so it's not just flapping around in the wind. There's a big chunk of fat right there. We'll go ahead and take that out. I'm not gonna do like too much here. Maybe take some of this off. Other than that, go ahead and take this off too. So go ahead and save most of these trim pieces because there's some meat on them, and even the fat, most of the fat's pretty good. You can save it to cook other stuff or to grind into sausage or burgers, whatever. So on the top here, first thing I want to do, this is obviously not going to survive, you know, a 10, 12-hour cook. It's just going to be burnt to a crisp. So just cut it, come in and just cut it off flush. So you have a nice, clean, even top. And there's a little booger hanging off here. I'm just going to go ahead and trim it down and around. So that's pretty good right there. There's a little bit of a hump, which is fine. It'll cook pretty consistently, so I'm not too super worried about that. The next part here is this very obviously thick chunk of fat here. So we're gonna go ahead and come in and trim that. So it's at least a little more flush and consistent. So generally, most people agree about a 1/4 inch of fat left on top. So you just have to kind of get the feel of, you know, gauging that. You know, I've even sometimes just cut a little slit and open it up and kind of use that as a gauge. I don't think this one's overly thick. And if you look at the end here, I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's pretty close to a 1/4 inch thick on the ends. Across, there's one chunk right here. It's pretty thick, so we'll trim that off. Actually, we may just go ahead and just round that whole corner off. A little, just kind of round this whole end up, so it's nice, you know, clean, uniform. You don't have any points that are just kind of jutting out that are going to get dried and burnt crispy. So the next part, that chunk of fat on the bottom that we cut off, called the decal, you'll feel it comes all the way through and comes out right here. So we're gonna kind of clean that up a little bit because that's pretty, you can feel it, it's pretty hard right there, and there's a big chunk of fat right here. Get started there and just come right across like that. So, in fact, I may come in and cut like this. And when you're, I'm not like a professional brisket trimmer here by any means. I'm a lot better than I used to be, but there are guys out there that are, you know, they make this look like a science. They're surgical. I am not. But they all taste good. So, and at the end of the day, that's really what matters. But yeah, see, this is all just pure fat. It's just going to be a waste when you cook it. It's not going to render down. Just get it out of there. So, but again, we don't want to like make it a crater in this brisket. We want it, you know, we want it clean and we want it streamlined and uniform. So I'm not gonna go super deep with it. I'm gonna, see there, it's probably should have left that alone. Got into the meat a little bit. It's okay. So we'll go ahead and get that out. That's kind of a nasty little silver skin type thing. Trim this up just a little bit more. Okay. Tell you what, just get that little meat flap off of there. I think that's pretty good. The other side here, we got some stuff hanging off. We'll go ahead and trim some of that up. Just try not to like get down into the meat if you can avoid it. You want to keep the fat coverage on top. It's gonna make it nice and tasty and moisty. So that's probably good there. Good. Let's go ahead and we'll come down across this. This looks like a little ridge of fat there that's probably a little too thick. You just want to try to keep it as uniform and consistent with the fat coverage as possible. Another tip too, beef fat is much easier to cut when it's cold. So I would cut this while it's cold. I wouldn't like to let it sit out to room temperature or anything like that, because then it just gets greasy and harder to cut. Clean. That's overhanging a little bit right there. Just anything that's like kind of sticking out of the ordinary, just go ahead and kind of round it off and trim it up. This is kind of uneven over here. Cut that out. It's pretty thick fat right here. Okay. Yeah, nice. Very nice. All right, I like that. I think we're just gonna roll with that. That's gonna be pretty good. All right, so next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and mix up our seasoning rub. And it's gonna be pretty simple. We're gonna do basically equal parts coarse ground black pepper and kosher salt. Coarse kosher salt. And we're gonna do this by volume, not by weight, because salt weighs more than pepper. If you do it by weight, you're gonna have way more salt, or way more pepper than you need. Put about that much salt. That pepper in there, and just using your eyeballs, get it to about, yeah, about a 50-50 mix there, 1-to-1, by volume, not by weight. Shake it up. And that's what we're looking for. Old black and white. I like gloves. Be rubbing your meat, so you want to keep it clean. So we'll have a dirty hand, we'll have a clean hand. So shaking hand, rubbing hand. So normally I'll use plain yellow mustard to coat this to help the dry rub stick on. But I'm out of yellow mustard. So a lot of times what I'll do then is I'll use some kind of hot sauce. So this is this is Cholula green pepper. So I thought that would go good with the black pepper. So I like to start seasoning on the bottom, just because it's going to be in contact with the grate. It's going to be the side that's down when you're cutting it. So I start there. So if we mess it up a little bit, and we're missing a little bit of seasoning here and there, it's on the bottom. It's not the side people are going to see. And just put, you know, a little bit on. You don't need a ton, because all it is just helping the dry rub to stick. So go ahead and rub that all over your meat. And then we're going to start hitting it with the old black and white kosher salt, black pepper. And just keep it moving, like just keep, you know, moving the seasoning around, keeping it mixed up, and then slowly kind of tilt it until you start getting a nice little shower of spices coming out. And just try to make a nice, even, consistent layer of spices. Don't have big piles all over the place. And you want to season it pretty well. I mean, it's a huge piece of meat. So you're only covering the outside. The inside doesn't have seasoning on it. So the outside needs to be pretty well coated. A lot of times too, what I'll do on these sides is I'll just kind of use my hand and I'll sprinkle against it and let it kind of ricochet down into the meat. So kind of like that. And that will help get the sides, you know, rather than like wrestling it around and doing this. Just do that, and then we'll kind of pat it on there. Hit the sides all around. You want flavor on all sides of the meat. I'm gonna flip it around since I'm a righty. And I don't want to get in an awkward position. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Now we'll go ahead and flip it over. And we'll hit the show side, the money side. Hit it with that hot sauce. Give her a nice rub down. Okay, rub that in, real nice. And then give it a sprinkling. The other thing too, I forgot to mention, is keep your seasonings up higher so that when they fall, they spread more. If I'm just doing this, like you're gonna get like a line, you know, a thick line of seasoning in one spot. So keep it up higher. Like that's not just for show, you know, when you see chefs like sprinkling spices from way up here, like it disperses them more. It's like think about it like a shotgun blast, if you know anything about guns. The further that the BBs come out of the barrel, the wider the spread gets. It's kind of the same way when we're seasoning stuff. You know, if you shot this point blank with a shotgun, you'd have a big hole, but if you shot it from back here, you'd have a spread. Same deal. Big hole, nice spread. So keep it up high. You don't have to get crazy, like you don't have to go up here. So that's good. That's what we're looking for. Nice, consistent coverage. That's gonna look real nice. Okay, temperature's stabilized on this thing. It's about 275 now. So we're gonna go ahead and put the meat on. Some stuff to keep in mind with these pellet smokers. This one in particular, the heat source is right in the middle. So you really don't want to lay your meat right across that because it's going to be a hot spot in the center. So I usually pick one side or the other. Got to go down for a long nap. So we'll come back and check on it in probably an hour. Okay, we're back. I went a little longer than I wanted to, but you know, life. So we're gonna add a water pan to this too. So you can see we're getting some pretty good color on here. Looking real nice. So I'm gonna put the water pan right on top of where the heat source is. So we're basically turning it into like a steam sauna. And it's gonna be good. So we have 50% water, 50% apple cider vinegar, and we're just gonna spray this meat all over, moisten it. Keep that meat nice and moist. And then back for now. Been going for a little while. Probably better get a temperature check. All right, so we're at 160. And that's usually about the point where you start getting into the stall. And that's where the internal temperature is going up and up and up and up. And it hits this point and it kind of stops for a while. And you have to break through that. So what we're gonna do is we'll go ahead and pull it off the heat and we'll wrap it in some butcher paper and then we'll put it back on. So make sure you don't get wax butcher paper. So this is just raw. So we're gonna go ahead and spray it down a little bit with our apple cider vinegar. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and give it a spritz again. Get her nice and moist before we wrap it up. That's wrong. Turn it this way. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna fold it like that. Fold this side up. Again, there are people that are better at wrapping than I am, but this is what you get. Okay. Fold that up. Keep everything, you know, nice and neat as possible. Tight. Like that. And then we're going to throw it back on. I think it's safe to say this thing's done. So we're close to 200. But also when you probe it, the probe goes in pretty easily. Pretty little resistance. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out, drain the juices out of the package, and we're gonna put it in the cooler and let it rest. Alrighty, let's get this sucker out of here. Oh, nope. Nope. Let's pour the juices out. Whew. A little warm. You don't want to lose all that though. It's worth saving it. Okay, so this is what we would call done. So we're close to around 200 degrees. Thermometer probe pierces right into it. I mean, it's almost like stabbing butter. Very little resistance when you probe it. But we're not ready to cut it yet. It's so hot right now. It's a muscle, so when it gets hot, it tenses up. So if we go start slicing it now, it's gonna look real good for a minute, and then it's gonna be dry. It's gonna push all the juices out. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put it in a cooler for probably about 2 hours. You can go longer, you can go a little bit shorter, but I'd say at least 1 to 2 hours. And the cooler has no ice in it, it's empty. So it's gonna be warm. It's basically just holding the heat and then it slowly come back down to temperature. So it makes a big difference. So make sure you try that out. So we're gonna just kind of loosely wrap it back up. The other thing is you can feel like it has a lot of give to it. That it's not real tense and tight like it would be when it's undercooked. You know, it almost feels like it's gonna break if you pick it up. So we'll go ahead and throw it in the cooler, let it rest, and be patient. It'll be worth it. See you in a couple hours. Oh, and save all this juice that came out of it because it's fucking hot. It's awesome. So you can pour it back over when it's done. All right, we've given the meat plenty of time to rest. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out now and let it finish cooling off. So we can slice it up. See, it's still pretty hot right now. So let it cool off to where we can actually handle it without burning our fingers off. I'm gonna go ahead and open it up too so that it can breathe a little bit. See that? That's nice. The moment you've been waiting for. After all the hours and all the waiting and all the spritzing and wrapping and resting and smelling, and it's time. It's time to cut it up. It's ready to go. So you can see it's all loosey-goosey and it's ready to go. So we're gonna use a brisket carving knife. If you don't have one of these, I highly suggest that you get one. It's all serrated, it's nice and sharp. So we're gonna flip it over and let's go ahead and talk about how to cut it up first. Because like we talked about in the beginning, there's multiple muscles here. So this area right here is called the flat. And then this area over here is called the point. This is leaner, this is fattier. They overlap each other. So basically, you're gonna have muscle fibers that run this way, and then you're gonna have intersecting muscle fibers that run this way. So as they overlap each other, the point gets a little thicker, the flat gets thinner, and you know, vice versa when you work this way. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna start cutting this like this on the flat against the grain. You don't wanna cut with the grain, otherwise you're gonna have meat spaghetti. It's gonna be tough, hard to chew, or at least hard to bite. The texture's not gonna be right. So always cut against the grain. And what I'll usually do is, just to make sure I have it, you know, you cut your first piece, test, you know, do a little pull test, and if you need to adjust your angle, you can. Once you get to about the middle point, we're probably gonna end up flipping it around and then start cutting this way. So you'll be able to see, once you get close, you'll start seeing the point where it intersects into the flat. And then you'll want to start adjusting, because you'll run into the problem with cutting with the grain as opposed to against the grain. So you'll see, and we'll show it. But anyways, we'll go ahead and start slicing it up then. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut a piece off the end, and we're going to see how it pulls apart like that. That's the right direction. That's the way you want to cut it. See, if you cut it the other way, then you'd have all these long muscle fibers, and they would not pull apart and break like this. So that's how it goes. So we're going to start working through like this until we get around this point, and then we're going to end up having to change directions and start cutting it like that. So that's about the thickness you want. So, you know, about the thickness of like a pencil. Just going to go and cut it right here in the middle to kind of show you what we're talking about. So as you can see, right here, that's the flat, and right here is where the point begins. So the flat starts running underneath the point, and it's probably about a good time to start changing direction of the cuts. So this is about where we'll stop cutting in this direction, which looks super good. And that over here. You know, maybe we'll just cut one more piece like this. That looks pretty good. Oh my gosh. Would you look at that? Oh my gosh. That is a freaking great piece right there. That's awesome. Now, here's a good example of what we talked about before with the decal, that big chunk of fat. See, this piece right here is kind of where that decal runs through between the point and the flat. So that's why we try to get as much of that out as we can without creating a big crater inside the meat, because that's basically inedible right there. So we'll just cut that out and throw it aside. So yeah, that piece right there, I would basically just cut that chunk out. Nobody's gonna want to eat that. Yeah, that's why we I mean, that's all fat. That's why we try to trim as much of that decal out. Really good, really good. So just pulls apart real easy. That's the way you want it. You don't have to pull it very hard, but you don't want it to just fall apart when you hold it up like that either. So, oh yeah. That's where it's at right there. That's why we get up at 5 a.m. Or actually, earlier than that, we were out here at 5 a.m. I'm doing prep work since probably 4:30. So, really worth it. Like a little treat. And that's pretty much it. Pretty much it. Yeah. Here, let's get a closer look here. See that? That is heaven. So, that's it. That's a brisket. If you want more, go to oakenblade.com. You can click the link below, and we'll see you on the next one.